Have you ever wondered how a conflict initially expected to last mere months escalated into the 4-year bloodbath now known as World War I? In the summer of 1914, the world was brimming with optimism. The 20th century was young and full of promise. Technological advancements were rapidly reshaping society, fostering a sense of invincibility and progress. It was against this backdrop that the world plunged into what was thought to be a short, decisive war. The stage was set with two major alliances, the Allies and the Central Powers. On one side, we had the Allies, a coalition of the United Kingdom, France and Russia, later joined by Italy and the United States. These were nations convinced of their moral righteousness, ready to defend their interests and assert their dominance. On the other side stood the Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. These were the underdogs, the challengers to the established order, determined to redraw the world map in their favor. But what was the spark that lit this powder keg? It was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria in June of 1914. His death at the hands of a Serbian nationalist sent shockwaves across Europe, setting off a domino effect of diplomatic failures, military mobilizations, and declarations of war. In the beginning, there was a sense of romanticism and adventure surrounding the war. Young men enlisted in droves, eager to prove their bravery and patriotism. Leaders and generals on both sides predicted a swift victory, a war that would be over by Christmas. However, the reality of the war quickly shattered this illusion. The conflict evolved into a grueling stalemate, marked by trench warfare, chemical weapons, and unprecedented casualties. The world was about to witness a war unlike any before, but as we know, this was far from a brief skirmish. The world was about to witness a war unlike any before. Imagine living in narrow, muddy trenches, facing death every day. This was the grim reality for soldiers on the Western Front. In the heart of the Western Front, our story plunges into the chilling depths of the infamous trenches. These were not just hastily dug holes in the ground, but a complex maze of tunnels and dugouts, a labyrinth where soldiers lived and died. It was a world of mud and filth where men slept, ate, fought, and often perished. The smell of damp earth mingled with the stench of rot and decay, a constant reminder of the fragility of life. Trench warfare was not part of the initial plan. It was a desperate response to the deadly efficiency of modern weaponry. As the armies clashed, they dug in, creating a stagnant line of defense that stretched across hundreds of miles. The trenches became the soldiers' home, their sanctuary, and their prison. Two battles encapsulate the horror and futility of trench warfare, the battles of Marne and Somme. The Battle of Marne, fought in September 1914, was a desperate struggle to halt the German advance. The Allies dug trenches to hold their ground, and the Germans responded in kind. The result, a stalemate. The Western Front became a war of attrition where victory was measured not in land won, but lives lost. Fast forward to July 1, 1916, the first day of the Battle of Somme, an attempt to break the deadlock. The British forces, expecting a swift victory, instead walked into a meat grinder. The first day alone saw over 57,000 casualties. The battle raged for 5 months. When the smoke cleared, over 1 million men had been wounded or killed. The most significant gain? A meager 6 miles of territory. The harsh reality of the trenches and the colossal loss of life shattered any lingering illusions of a quick and glorious war. They were a testament to the high cost of conflict and the human capacity for endurance in the face of unimaginable hardship. The muddy trenches became a symbol of the war's brutality and the futility of trench warfare. World War I was not only about human resilience but also about technological innovation. As we delve deeper into this pivotal period of history, it becomes evident that the war was a catalyst for an array of technological advancements. Firstly, let's delve into the introduction of tanks. Before the war, armies primarily relied on horses for mobility. But as the battlefields became more treacherous, the need for a more robust and resilient mode of transport became apparent. Enter the tank. These metal beasts, with their ability to traverse difficult terrains and withstand heavy gunfire, revolutionized warfare. They offered a new way to break through enemy lines, providing a significant advantage to the side that deployed them. But the advancements were not only in transportation. The war also saw the advent of chemical weapons. These deadly concoctions were a grim testament to human ingenuity, turning the very air into a weapon. Despite their horrific nature, one cannot overlook their impact on warfare. They introduced a new dimension to the battlefield, forcing armies to devise new strategies and protective measures against these unseen threats. And then, there was the sky. Before World War I, aircraft were mainly seen as a novelty, a plaything for the rich and adventurous. But the war transformed them into vital tools for reconnaissance and combat. The introduction of aircraft in warfare provided a bird's-eye view of the battlefield, enabling strategies to be devised with a level of precision previously unimagined. Moreover, they introduced the concept of aerial combat, adding another layer to the complexity of warfare. As we look back on these developments, it's clear that World War I was a period of rapid technological innovation. These advancements, born from the crucible of conflict, forever changed the face of warfare. They made it more deadly, more complex, and in many ways more impersonal. But they also demonstrated the incredible adaptability and ingenuity of humans under extreme circumstances. These advancements forever changed the face of warfare, making it more deadly and impersonal. The war had profound and lasting effects on the world, both politically and socially. In the realm of politics, the world witnessed a shift of tectonic proportions. Empires that had stood for centuries crumbled, vanishing into the annals of history. The mighty German, Austro-Hungarian, Russian, and Ottoman empires were no more. Their collapse created a vacuum that was quickly filled by new nations, born out of the ashes of war. Borders were redrawn, and countries were reshaped. The map of Europe and the Middle East as we know them today began to take form. Poland, Czechoslovakia, and Yugoslavia emerged as sovereign nations. The Middle East was carved up, laying the foundations for conflicts that persist till this day. In the social arena, the war's impact was no less significant. Women, who had been relegated to the domestic sphere, stepped up to fill the roles vacated by men going off to war. They worked in factories, drove ambulances, and served as nurses. Their invaluable contribution to the war effort was a turning point in the fight for gender equality. But the war also left an indelible scar on society. An entire generation was lost in the trenches and battlefields of Europe. The young men who survived returned home bearing the physical and psychological wounds of war. The sense of loss was pervasive, casting a long shadow over the post-war world. Moreover, the war brought about a radical shift in cultural expressions. The optimism and romanticism of the pre-war era gave way to disillusionment and cynicism. Artists, writers, and musicians began to explore themes of absurdity and futility, reflecting the collective trauma of the war. World War I marked the end of an era and the beginning of another, shaping the world as we know it today. The war was a catalyst for change, propelling humanity into a new age. It was a watershed moment, a turning point that set the course for the 20th century and beyond. As we reflect on the Great War, it's important to remember its lessons. The Great War, as it's often referred to, was a stark reminder of the depths to which humanity can plummet. It was an exhibition of the darker side of human progress, a showcase of the destructive power we can yield when driven by nationalism and militarism. One of the most profound lessons we learned from the war was the perilous nature of unchecked nationalism. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was merely a spark that ignited the flame, but the kindling had been prepared by years of nationalistic fervor and imperial ambitions. Nations, drunk on the idea of their exceptionalism, rushed headlong into a conflict that would claim millions of lives. The horrors of the trenches and the introduction of new, more lethal technologies served as a grim lesson on the evolution of warfare. The romantic notions of bravery and glory on the battlefield were replaced with the grim reality of mechanized death. The war's industrial-scale brutality was a chilling reminder that with each technological advancement we make, we must also advance in our humanity and our judgment. The war also highlighted the necessity of diplomacy in resolving conflicts. The Treaty of Versailles, while flawed, marked a significant step towards prioritizing diplomacy over warfare. It was a recognition that the pen should be mightier than the sword, and that conflicts should be resolved in meeting rooms, not on battlefields. In the aftermath of the war, the world was irrevocably changed. Empires crumbled, new nations were born, and societies were forever altered. Yet, amidst the ruins, humanity found the resilience to rebuild and to learn from its mistakes. While we can't change the past, we can learn from it and strive to prevent such devastating conflicts in the future. The Great War, with all its suffering and devastation, stands as a stark reminder of the path we should strive not to tread again. Its lessons continue to echo through the corridors of time, reminding us of the cost of war, the value of peace, and the importance of remembering history.